Hello, good evening. I'm Soraya Mia. You're watching AWANI Tonight. Malaysia saw a loss of some 20 billion ringgit in revenue last year due to a shortage of foreign workers in the palm oil sector, says Plantation and Commodities Minister Datuk Sri Fadilah Yusof. As a result, the Cabinet has agreed to facilitate the intake of foreign workers and extend the labour recalibration program until the end of this year.
Di peringkat Malaysia, apa yang dah diputuskan di peringkat Kabinet ialah untuk memudahkan segala proses. Dalam negara dah selesai. Cuma kita kena pastikan negara yang mengeluarkan ataupun mengeksport tenaga pekerja itu juga memudahkan proses. Kalau peringkat kita tapi peringkat sana tidak dipermudahkan proses itu, ianya juga menjadi kekangan. Itu yang akan dikendalikan oleh Kementerian Dalam Negeri dan juga Kementerian Sumber Manusia.
The Deputy Prime Minister said Malaysia will hold a meeting with the Indonesian government to determine a crude palm oil CPO benchmark price. He said the matter needs to be discussed jointly as Indonesia's plans will affect the palm oil industry globally. Indonesia is the world's largest palm oil producer with almost 50 million tonnes of CPO annually.
Meanwhile, Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Sri Ahmad Zahid Hamidi has filed an application at the Kuala Lumpur High Court to have his passport permanently returned to him. Zahid said this is to enable him to effectively carry out his duties, which includes official trips overseas.
The UMNO president said he received a mandate from Prime Minister Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim to represent the latter for government administrative matters. In his supporting affidavit filed on January 20th, Zahid said he needed to be present in and out of the country, which required him to have his passport ready. He added that he also needed the document to apply for a diplomatic passport for his official duties. Zahid said he had no intention of running away and vowed to attend trial on the date set by the court. The High Court is withholding Zahid's passport as part of his conditional bail, pending the outcome of his corruption trial. He is currently facing 47 charges, including criminal breach of trust, corruption and money laundering involving millions of ringgit from Yayasan Akal Budi.
Prime Minister Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim says he supports calls for Islamic studies in Malaysian schools to be reviewed. He said the subject, which is yet to be reviewed since first introduced, must encourage dialogue and tolerance.
Itu saya serah kepada Menteri Pendidikan Tinggi Datuk Sri Khalid Nordin bahawa cadangan daripada sarjana utama termasuk pesawat sembaka iaitu kurikulum atau mata pelajaran peradaban Islam itu harus dilihat dan dikaji semula supaya betul-betul memberi kefahaman yang lebih mendalam dengan mesej Islam, tentunya tentang soal nilai, soal akhlak, soal kemanusiaan, soal universal. Jadi ini dirasakan perlu diberi perhatian.
Youth and Sports Minister Hannah Yeoh urges the government to restructure the National Technical and Vocational Education and Training TVET program to avoid wastage and duplication. She highlighted that TVET is currently implemented by several ministries instead of just one, leading to confusion among industry players.
KBS sedia bekerjasama dengan Kementerian Sumber Manusia untuk kita strukturkan semula TVET. Tidak perlu setiap kementerian buat program TVET masing-masing. Bila kita semua buat program masing-masing, dia tak nampak terurus, tak fokus dan banyak pembaziran.
Yeoh added that TVET programs must be updated to remain relevant to the youth of today, who care about the gig economy and flexible working hours. She said many young people consider existing courses outdated and do not meet the present day's economic situation.
In other news, former Rembau MP Khairi Jamaluddin says he remains loyal as an ordinary member of UMNO. Speaking to Berita Harian, Khairi was commenting on offers made by Perikatan Nasional to join the coalition should he lose his UMNO membership.
Earlier, PAS Vice President Datuk Sri Dr. Ahmad Samsuri Mohtar claimed that PN and PAS were ready to accept Khairi, even for him to choose to be in any party inside PN. Samsuri, who is also the Terengganu Menteri Besar, said he considered the former Health Minister a great leader who carried out his duties well.
UMNO is expected to hold a Supreme Council meeting tomorrow night to discuss action against Khairi for claiming that dirty tactics were employed to ensure a no contest motion for UMNO's top 2 posts was passed at the recent General Assembly.
In 2019, Datuk Seri Najib Razak rebuilt his tattered political reputation with the deceptively simple 3-word catchphrase, "Malu apa bosku." Why did it work? Tonight on Consider This, we dissect the social media campaign and its effects on Malaysian politics. We'll go for a quick break. Stay with us.
Magnum Belgian Chocolate Lux Baharu, Ice Cream Coklat Ungu, Coklat Belgium Tebal, dan cebisan biskut rangup.
Seems to be the ideal.
Magnum, kenikmatan sejati.
Anda perlukan perlindungan untuk menghadapi cabaran yang datang tanpa kelumomo, minyak dan kegatalan. Clear Man Baharu, 3 kali kuasa anti kelumomo dengan mentol dingin untuk kesegaran selama 24 jam untuk kuasa maskulin sebenar. Clear Man.
Kita kembali lagi dalam Yang Mana Satu Idaman You. Okey, kali ini you dah tak payah pilih dah. Nak internet pantas, wifi kencang dan berjimat untuk hiburan? Hanya RM164.99 sebulan. Anda dapat 5 dalam 1. Internet laju, 100 saluran Astro, aplikasi Astro Go, Disney Plus Hotstar dan HBO Go. Psst, harga asal RM184.99 tau. Tukarlah pack sekarang.
Welcome back. Consumers are said to be paying high prices for food and beverages at eateries, even as costs for raw items in the market stabilized. Tan Hai Shin, Managing Director of Retail Group Malaysia, says the disruption in supply chain can also affect the rising prices.
The thing about this minimum wage, of course, it doesn't really affect retail outlet in particular, because most of retail, most of their staff are already enjoyed more than 1,005 minimum wage, but it actually affected the entire retail supply chain. Okay, so it starts from manufacturer, distributor, or even farmers, right? Because the minimum wage right now is 1,005, so affected their cost of operation become higher. So when they supply to the next chain of in the supply chain itself, they increase their prices. Now, the second reason refers to those who depends on import, whether retailer import the goods themselves or they get goods from distributor who imported from overseas. Now, last year itself, we see several crises. When the market reopened, whether it's US or Europe itself, it caused a logistic crisis, right? So that lead to logistic company increase their shipping costs, their delivery costs, distribution costs itself. Second, because of Ukraine-Russia war. Until today, it's still not finished, right? And it still will continue likely to be this year. Now, that also caused energy crisis. That caused also a lot of goods imported into Malaysia became higher, right? There's also previously, right, a month ago, they were still locked down in China, right? That caused manufacturing activity in China actually reduced tremendously, right? That also affected the cost of import from China into Malaysia. So this again is the entire supply chain from importer, distributor, manufacturer, that when they arrive at the retailer, the cost of goods become higher, right? The second reason. Third reason, renter. When COVID started, a lot of landlords were willing to reduce renter or waive renter or give renter rebate. Since the market reopened more than a year ago, gradually, in stages, landlords have actually increased the renter back to 2019 level. Not all, but most of them, right? So renter has come back, right? Compared to probably used to be 1 year ago, you used to get only 50% of the renter you used to pay. So now it's the same renter as 2019. So that increased your costs.
Meanwhile, with inflation seeing a downward trend in the past months, when can we expect food prices at eateries to go down?
2022, if I'm not wrong, the inflation rate was 3%. 3.3%, I'm sorry, 3.3%. Now, for the whole year, the restaurant prices was not the highest In fact, the highest contribution for the whole year of last year was actually the food you bought from grocery store, consume at home and cook at home. So whether it's egg, apple, produce, vegetables, all these things was the highest. The average was actually 5.8%. Okay. Now the prices of restaurant and hotel was 5%. The third highest was actually transport. That's 4.7%. So the highest is still the food prices. That of course will also affect the restaurant as well. When you get the fruit produce, the vegetable, the meat from actually the supplier, from wet market, from supermarket as well. Right. So that was contributing factor. Now, can we go back to the inflation rate of 0.7% in 2019? Right, from the current 3.3. Unlikely this year. Because Bank Negara current projection for the inflation rate in 2023 is between 2.8 to 3.3. So it's still much higher than 0.7 or 0.9% in 2019 or 2018. Okay, or can we even look at 2016, 2.1%, right? Compared to 3.3 right now, last year, 2022. I think it's still a timeline. So I do not expect to drop so easily, all right, for this year. That's why I said earlier that it will be more likely you see that trend to be back to 2019 or 2016 level in 2024, not so much in 2023. So food prices will still remain at that high level.
Now on to foreign news. Ukraine has declared an air raid alert over the entire country on Thursday following Russian missile attacks. The military says its air defense units shot down 47 of 55 missiles. Huge explosions shook Kiev in the attacks, where at least one person was reportedly killed, while 2 others were wounded.
Earlier, the country's largest private energy company had implemented emergency power outages in several regions due to threats of missile attacks. This comes after the United States and Germany announced plans to arm Ukraine with dozens of battle tanks for its front lines. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has thanked leaders of the 2 countries for supporting its fight against Russia, but said they must be delivered quickly. He also urged the West to send long-range missiles and fighter jets. Meanwhile, Russia condemned the announcement as a blatant provocation, adding that any supplied tanks would be destroyed. Russia has targeted critical infrastructure with drone and missile strikes since October, causing blackouts during the winter season.
Meanwhile, Spain is investigating a possible act of terrorism after a man armed with a machete stormed a church in the southern town of Algeciras, killing 1 and wounding several others. The suspect has since been arrested and is in custody of Spain's national police.
Authorities did not reveal the suspect's identity and offered no further detail on his possible motives. The attack occurred on Wednesday night when the man entered one church and assaulted a priest who was seriously injured. He then went into another church where he damaged property before fatally attacking a sexton who looks after the church. A day of mourning has been declared in the city for Thursday.
A group of Peruvian lawmakers submitted a motion seeking to impeach President Dina Boluarte after a little over a month in power. They're filing the motion on the grounds of Boluarte's alleged permanent moral incapacity over handling protests following the removal of predecessor Pedro Castillo.
The motion was signed by 28 leftist members of Congress who support Castillo. It must now be approved by 52 votes before it can be debated in Congress, where it must win 2/3 of the chamber's support. On Tuesday, Boluarte called for a political truce. She also accused drug traffickers and others of stirring up violence on the streets. At least 47 people have died in clashes since the protests began in December, with hundreds more injured. Human rights groups have accused police and soldiers of using excessive force, including live ammunition and tear gas.
Before we end this show, here's a story of a rare tree kangaroo. The species has emerged from its mother's pouch for the first time after its birth at a zoo in northwestern England. Animal conservationists call the moment celebratory. As the zoo said, it was the first time in its 91-year history that the endangered species was born there.
The joey was the first of the species to be born at Chester Zoo in July and has since been developing in the pouch. Conservationists have been recording the joey's growth with a special endoscope camera placed in the mother's pouch every few weeks. They say the data could help tree kangaroos and other threatened species. According to experts, the tree kangaroo species native to Papua New Guinea had one of the most complex birthing processes in the animal kingdom. Unlike its famous Australian counterpart, the species also called the Goodfellows tree kangaroo live in trees. The species became endangered as they were often hunted for their meat. Their habitat had also been disappearing as forests are cleared for timber and to make way for coffee and rice plantations.
That's all for this show tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm Soraya Mia and we'll see you tomorrow.